Good afternoon, everybody. The LAEDC will be presenting you with an amazing webinar. It's going to be dealing with unlocking state incentives, maximizing opportunities for California manufacturers. So you're going to get some great resources here. We have some awesome guest speakers. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today. This webinar will also be recorded. We're also going to be having a Q&A at the end of the session. So feel free to drop questions in the chat box. Next slide, please. Again, welcome. My name is Rafael Contreras. I'm one of the regional managers here for the Business Assistance Program here at LAEDC. If you need to reach me directly, here's my contact information. And again, I'll also throw that in the chat box. Next slide, please. So here at LAEDC, we have a vision. Our vision is a reimagined Los Angeles regional economy, growing, equitable, sustainable, and resilient that provides a healthy and high standard of living for all. Our mission is actually to reinvent our economy to collaboratively advance growth and prosperity for all. Next. We take a 5-pillar strategy for economic development. We do this through industry cluster, economic research, workforce development, foreign direct investment, and of course, the best department here, business assistance. Next. So LAEDC offers business and technical assistance with complimentary and confidential consulting to small businesses across all industry sectors all over LA County. We have a team of multilingual business assistance specialists. So we're able to assist you overcoming any challenges to help you stay in business and potentially grow. Some of the services we offer are workforce training and development, permitting, access to capital, tax incentives, site selection, etc. All the rest are also listed there. These slides will be public as well. So if you have a certain niche that you need us to help you with, we will be able to help you with that. Next slide. Again, this is just the same slide, just in a format of a roadmap. We are basically your connection to resources, whether it's permit assistance, financing, energy efficiencies, workforce, economic data, or ultimately reducing risks or increasing your bottom line. This is how we're able to assist you. Next. So these are our awesome guest speakers here. I'd actually like to welcome Linda Rosenberg. She's the Senior Client Advisor at CMTC. Our second guest speaker is Dustin McDonald. He's in the business development for the LA and Orange County region at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Linda so she can get started. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Rafael. And thanks to LAEDC, a great CMTC partner, for having me today. So just a very brief background on CMTC, and then we'll get into the economic incentives that can help you all with growing your business and saving money. So CMTC is a nonprofit consulting and training organization that's 100% focused on helping small to medium-sized manufacturers and businesses doing warehousing and distribution in California to thrive. We're really here as a 360-degree resource to help with improving productivity, improving sales and profitability, helping upskill your workforce, and helping you save money. So it's a little bit about CMTC, and now I'd love to, if you can change slides, please, talk about workforce development. So just some valuable facts about the impact of workforce development. I don't think any of these will come as a surprise to you, but the numbers are pretty significant. So 93% of employees said that they would stay at a company longer if it invested in their careers. Very key to employee retention. Retention rates rise 30 to 50% for companies that really focus on continuous learning. And companies that are actually investing money into training and development for their employees actually have higher profit margins. So it's very good ROI on investment. And, the younger part of the workforce really is focused on wanting training, wanting leadership training and so forth to support them in their career development. So, next, please. There is an incentive. It's called Employment Training Panel, or ETP for short. What this is for manufacturers in California that are really investing in upskill their workforce. It subsidizes the training costs to do that. Why? Why does ETP exist? Because training leads to more highly skilled employees, better employee retention, better return on investment, and cost savings for the company. So there is ETP funding. So when a California manufacturer, for example, is working with CMTC for any type of workforce training, such as some examples that I'll share on the next slide, then oftentimes you're able to leverage our ETP contract to help subsidize the cost of training, which makes it really easy to access. We've actually worked as a big partner with ETP for over 2 decades, and we've managed over $50 million in ETP funds, and we've trained over 40,000 employees over the past couple decades. Next slide, please. So here you can see the key buckets of areas where we can conduct training that is eligible for ETP offset funding to help subsidize the cost. So lots of areas, both on the technical side and on the soft skills side, including lean continuous improvement, leadership training. So many organizations have individual contributors that are rising through the ranks and don't have any formal supervisory or leadership training. Communications, team building, conflict resolution. We provide different types of safety, environmental health and safety training, hazmat, quality management, including lots of different areas. For example, help with preparing for different types of certifications. Oftentimes, this type of work can also qualify for ETP training funds. Training in Microsoft Office tools such as Excel, QuickBooks, blueprint reading, and shop math, and vocational English as a second language. I'd also like to share that depending on the topics and your geography and whether it's in person or remote, because we can do both types of training depending on your needs and what modality is best suited to the type of training. Oftentimes we're able to provide training in Spanish as well. Next slide, please. Just something to share. So CMTC is partially funded by the Department of Commerce in the state of California. And all of the clients that work with us do an annual short online survey about the estimated impact of our assistants on key metrics for their business. Really, their performance is our performance. Their scorecard is our scorecard. We're really invested as a long-term value-added partner for you. And so here you can see this is from 2023, the impact as reported directly by our clients. And this is very similar year to year. We worked with over 1,600 manufacturers last year. They reported job growth and job retention of over 18,000 jobs, over $500 million in sales impact, $350 million plus invested in the local economy, and over $120 million in cost savings. We're really genuinely here as a resource to help you improve your performance, navigate challenges, upskill your workforce, and leverage funding to help you access these great resources, funding such as ETP. Now I am happy to turn this over to Dustin McDonald from GoBiz, and you can switch slides, Seta. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda, and hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this webinar today so we can give you a quick overview of what state incentives exist to support your business operations and help save you money along the way. As was mentioned at the start of this program, my name is Dustin McDonald, and I serve the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, principally in a regional role. A couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, the state of California put together a regional team of people like me. So there's somebody like me in every region of the state, and our sole role is to assist businesses in navigating and connecting with state incentives to save money and working with great groups like LAEDC and CMTC along the way in their kind of wraparound supportive business assistance. This slide, as well as the next, gives you kind of a brief overview of what's inside GoBiz. I know Linda mentioned that CMTC is partially funded by the Department of Commerce. GoBiz is kind of like California's U.S. Department of Commerce. So within it sits the team that I'm on, which is Business Investment Services. We also work directly to support businesses on permitting with the Northern California and a Southern California permitting team. Their core role is to help businesses as they consider expansions, where they might need to engage and negotiate with local governments on the permitting of equipment or shortening those timelines to really help save you money in that permitting process. The other thing we do within GoBiz on our team is site selection. GoBiz runs a free confidential 2-week site selection search for you. All we need is your specs on what you're looking for in terms of the size of the facility, square footage, acreage of the property, water usage, energy usage, standard features that you would probably provide any consultant as you were seeking to find a new site. GoBiz can do all of that for you for free. So if you're considering expansion, you need cost savings on equipment and facilities, please don't be a stranger. We are definitely here for supporting your business and helping you succeed. Also within GoBiz is the Office of the Small Business Advocate. We have an international affairs team that helps businesses both with onshoring, coming into California and setting up, as well as businesses who are trying to explore foreign trade missions and identify overseas markets. The GoBiz has some facilities to help you with that as well. Next slide, please. Beyond these kind of core features, GoBiz also has some unique elements. We work directly with the Treasurer's Office through their iBank to provide financing tools to help with facilities. That can include small business loan guarantees as well as industrial development bonds, whereby borrowers can essentially secure additional support from lenders for securing additional access to credit, as well as see reduced borrowing rates on the tax-exempt bond market by going to the Treasurer's Office to essentially float a bond and secure those lower rates. Also in our shop, we have our own zero emissions vehicles team, which kind of works on 2 fronts. One, certainly they're working with state departments and agencies that are building all the regulations as the state of California drives away from fossil fuels and tries to help businesses along the way who may be running their own commercial fleets of trucks or vans or whatever, what have you. The state has rebate programs that we'll talk a little bit about today. And our ZEV team internally works with those state regulators as well as folks on the private marketplace to ensure that those cost savings can be secured by your businesses. Next slide, please. So kicking off a bunch of slides that we're going to go through on different state incentives. Wanted to start with the R&D tax credit. A lot of businesses who might be in the manufacturing space, particularly if you're in areas of new innovation and growth like aerospace, as we talked about the transition away from fossil fuels, you might be in a space where you're manufacturing alternative fuel vehicles, alternative fuel itself, alternative fuel infrastructure. As you go about organizing your approaches to these things, you can probably see a reduction in taxes you pay by utilizing the R&D tax credit. Under this credit, qualified research expenses, which can include facilities and equipment as well as research and contract research, can save you an average of 15 to 24% on those costs. You don't have to apply it at one particular time. So it gives you kind of that freedom and flexibility of the whole year to approach the program. Next slide, please. Just talk about R&D a little bit. Next slide, please. The other two programs we want to make sure you're aware of on the tax side as it relates to equipment is the partial sales and full sales tax exclusion and exemption. We'll go through the full sales tax exemption first. Under this program, essentially, you do, when you're thinking about applying to it, there are actually application deadlines, with the next one likely coming up in January of 25. So you have a little bit of time to prepare. We can even facilitate conversations with you between department and agency staff that administer this program, as well as any other programs that we'll go through today. We're really a resource here for you. But really, this program is designed to help businesses who are purchasing manufacturing equipment, qualifying equipment that you're seeking to purchase. You can see the entire state retail tax rate of about 7.25%, as well as the accompanying corollary local retail tax rate shaved off the purchases of those equipment. Typically, this process is about a 3 or 4 month process after you apply, before the board, the CAPTA board, who actually will execute decisions on this, will go through their process and begin doing that. So that's about the timeline for the approach, but an extremely useful program if you're contemplating buying new equipment. Next slide, please. Well, I don't know how we missed over here. One to go over real quick is the partial sales tax exemption, or the partial sales tax exemption. That's a 36-month look back at equipment you already bought. And so the beauty of that program, and don't worry if we don't have a slide on it in here, there is a QR code to our full business investment guide at the end of my slides, so you'd be able to hop in there and get additional info on the program. But the partial sales tax exemption essentially works like you can apply anytime through the Get It in Writing program for the state. There's not specific application periods or deadlines. Basically, you're going to go into a form, plug in the manufacturing equipment you bought, and through that program, the state's going to let you know if it's eligible for the partial sales tax exemption. If it is, you're able to have half of that state retail tax rate, around 3.94%, shaved off of the purchase price of that equipment you already purchased in a form of a rebate you can take back to the people you bought the equipment from. Now, hopping into an area that combines both your outlook on investment as well as your outlook on direct hiring, we'll take a look real quick at the California Competes tax credit. This tax credit does, like the full sales tax exclusion, this program does have application periods. Next one also likely coming up in January. Under this program, essentially what you're saying to the state of California is, state of California, over the next 5 years, this is how many full-time employees I anticipate hiring, and this is the amount of capital investment I intend to make. From that information, the California Competes team will extrapolate back to you, hey, here's how many tax credits we think that's worth. The beauty of the tax credits that they can award to you are twofold. One, you have the existing 5 years that you projected where you can utilize those tax credits. However, there's also an additional 6-year carryover on those tax credits if in fact you don't end up utilizing them over that first 5-year period. So there can be a lot of utility for that tax credit, particularly if you're a business that's emerging, where you might not have a lot of utility for tax credits on the front side, but they might be more attractive to you and useful for you on the back side. The trigger with this program, as well as another one that we'll talk about, is that when you apply to this program, you're arguing to the state that but for this incentive, but for you being able to secure this incentive, you would not be able to do business in the state of California. So if you're already doing business here, you're saying to the state, I'd have to shut down if I don't get this incentive, or I'd have to leave and go to a different market. And so there you just have to do some due diligence to demonstrate, hey, state of California, I'm looking at Nevada or Arizona or wherever you may be looking at a potential alternative location to do business. So just for your awareness, those are kind of requirements as you apply to this program, is those two arguments that you're making. Either I'm going to have to close down or I'm going to have to move markets if I don't get this tax credit. Next slide, please. Yeah, just rambling on about all that. Just so you know, though, in terms of total amount you can take down, you're looking at 20% of the total amount of the program for the year. Typically, there's 2 or 3 application periods that go on throughout the year, about $180 million in volume that's available each time. Also know there's no penalty if you don't end up, if you misestimate the tax credits, right? or misestimate the amount of people you're going to hire or your capital expenditure over that 5-year period. We all know a lot can happen over 5 years, COVID, election drama, all sorts of stuff. So know that the state of California is flexible with those things and that you will not be penalized if you don't hit those numbers. What actually happens is the tax credits that you don't use just get recycled back into the pool for other businesses to compete for. Next slide, please. Getting into a little bit of the tranche on energy saving side, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the economic development rate and the self-generation incentive program. Next slide, please. On the economic development rate program, essentially, so the state of California has set up a partnership with the 3 investor-owned utilities. Down this way, across the LA Orange County region, of course, it's Southern California Edison, who's primarily your power provider. So the way that the program works is you as a business make application to SCE to participate in the economic development rate program. SCE will do a due diligence determining if your business is kind of meeting the requirements a little bit that are laid out in this slide, minimum load requirement, 150 kilowatts. But there is a tranche for businesses who are using less than that. So there's an opportunity to also apply on the small business side if you're a business that is not using 150 kilowatt hours. The beauty of the program is that it can save you 12% on your power bill over a 5-year period. So going back to process, you're going to apply to SCE. SCE is going to spend some time doing due diligence with you on the case you made. Then SCE is going to give us a call and say, hey, this business reached out to us. They're interested in pursuing the economic development rate program. GoBiz then conducts our own assessment. We don't share homework with each other on that process. We come to our determination, and then we circle back with SCE, who then gets back in touch with you. The great news about that process is it's not a time-consuming process. In total, you're looking probably at 6 to 8 weeks. A lot of it's depending on your ability as a business to provide the figures that SCE, for example, will need on the front end to make a determination. Next slide, please. I will say one more thing on economic development rate real quick. One, there are no timelines or deadlines or whatever for to apply to that program. So you can apply any time of year. Economic development rate also, though, just like the California Competes tax credit, the economic development rate functions off of that same trigger where you're telling the state, if I am not able to secure the economic development rate, my business is either going to have to close down or it's going to have to move out of state. So you're kind of making that exact same argument for the economic development rate that you would be for the California Competes tax credit. Now, self-generation incentive. Solar has been around for a long time in California, and the state previously has had incentives to assist businesses with applying solar to the facilities. We're a ways past that now. We'll get a little deeper into the slides and talk about resources for the transition away from fossil fuels. But this is part of that effort to both ensure reliability on the grid, as well as ensure for businesses that are interested in maintaining a reliability when there could be challenges with the grid, to rebate them for the cost of that equipment. So essentially, if you're applying any kind of equipment to your facility, that's not only going to help you capture alternative energy, be it solar or wind or what have you, but also store that energy for reuse, like a fuel cell battery or something like that. California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC, offers this program for businesses to essentially get a rebate on that type of equipment that they're putting on the facility. So if you're in the process of doing some facility overhaul, contemplating some changes to how you're capturing and storing energy for use, this could be a program that might be of interest to you. Next slide, please. Now we're going to dive into a little bit of the territory that Linda jumped into a little bit already with the ETP program. I want to tell you a little bit about some hiring and workforce training incentives. We'll go across homeless hiring tax credit, new employee credit, and the California Workforce Accelerator. Next slide, please. The homeless hiring tax credit is just what it sounds like. It's an incentive really where the state is trying to incentivize employers to hire people who have been disconnected from housing for some time. California can be a wild place, plenty of natural disasters, earthquakes, and that sort of thing that can displace people from housing. So we want to ensure that there's a pathway for folks to get back on their feet, not only just to housing, but also on the employment front. So this tax credit option gives employers $2,500 to $10,000 in tax credits with a total of $30 million available annually to support that, with the caveat that really the people that you're hiring would have to have been participating in utilizing some kind of homeless services within 180 days prior to hiring. But there's additional information in here about some of the other qualifications that you as the employer need to make, like the rate of pay needs to be 120% above minimum wage. So there are some things in there to consider, but a great tool, depending on where your operation is set up and your commitment to various hiring. Next slide, please. The new employment credit is honestly one of my favorites, highly subscribed and utilized. I think it just got reauthorized in the legislature with a little bit more flexibility into it. But essentially, this credit offers employers tax savings of 10 to 35% of an employee's wages and benefits off of their taxes for qualified employees. And so that can be former veterans, formerly incarcerated individuals, people who have been unemployed for a period of time. Hiring is going to give you that tax advantage, again, of potentially being able to save 35% of the cost of an employee's wages and benefits. But a lot of it has to do with where your business is located. So if your business is located in a designated geographic area, and I put a link here that you can click through, plug your address in to determine if it is, then this credit very much can apply to your business. And it has a 12-month retroact on it. So there may be employees that you've already hired that you're eligible to receive this credit for. So worth checking out. Next slide, please. Okay, so in addition to the employment training panel that Linda covers, CMTC, want to make you aware of a brand new tool in California workforce, both hiring and training toolbox. So this is the California Workforce Accelerator. This program is really sitting over at Calbright College. Calbright College is a statewide community college designed to bring in people who are 25 to 34 years old, who for whatever reason did not get a chance to participate in 2-year, 4-year educations. And this really gives them a chance to pursue that skill set. What we've done with California Accelerator is introduced a private partner that was already existing and helping companies build and introduce curriculums into community colleges across 60 community colleges in the state. Now that they're plugged into Calbright, any company of any size that would like to both seek students, so seek potential employees, because Calbright has basically a 2-part function. It can work with you, the employer, to design a curriculum, put it on the Calbright platform, and then allow students to take that as prospective employees. So you have a 2-part piece where you have the curriculum development and deployment, as well as Calbright serving your company as a recruiting tool. All of this can be done very quickly. Calbright Nexus Edge can work with you to develop a curriculum and deploy it within a week, sometimes less. And of course, the beauty of their partnership with community colleges is your workforce training needs may go beyond the online classroom where you need a hands-on component to the training. And that's where the statewide network of community colleges, 115 community colleges, comes in, where you can work with Calbright to do the online training piece for free, and then also be able to utilize the resources that exist on the ground in a community college for your employees to do the hands-on training. Again, all of it's free for employers. We already have some great ones in the door, HubSpot, IBM, and we're talking to a number of companies in the aerospace manufacturing sector as well who are interested in jumping in. Again, brand new program, just came through the Calbright board last month, but wanted to make sure you all were aware of this one. Next slide, please. Okay, getting into the ZEV portfolio. So really, you have kind of 2 types of incentives here. You have a pathway of incentives designed for companies who are in the space of actually doing the design and manufacture of alternative fuels, alternative fueling infrastructure, and alternative fueled vehicles themselves, be they vans, trucks, drayage trucks, and even marine vessels and some aerospace now, and airplanes as well. So we'll walk you through a little bit of those programs. But the other side of it is, of course, companies who are just doing business as a company, who may have their own existing fleets of trucks or vans or what have you, and simply need to convert those. And so we'll talk a little about programs that can save businesses money in that arena as well. So let's dive into those with the next slide, please. So the Energize program is really designed to help businesses seat new L2 chargers. So chargers for basically charging alternative passenger vehicles. It's a big priority of the state to ensure that that infrastructure is deployed in a way that is equitable, but also ensures that there's not huge holes in the state where there isn't this type of infrastructure and people cannot charge their cars. So the Energize program helps businesses who are in designated geographic areas. Like I talked about with the previous workforce program, businesses in those areas, in most instances, are able to secure having the state work to provide those charging resources for free. So it's definitely worth checking out where your business is locating and then chatting with us and the folks over at California Energy Commission to determine eligibility. Next slide, please. The HVIP program is really designed to try to help businesses with that point of sale rebate. So if you are a business that has a fleet of trucks, vans, that sort of thing, and you need to meet the state's requirements to convert those vehicles to either be 2010 or newer or be a ZEV vehicle, this program is really designed to provide that rebate for you. As you can see there, the voucher ranges from $7,500 up to $400,000 per truck to help with that transition of your fleets away from fossil fuel to alternative fuel vehicles. Next slide, please. Now we get into the specific manufacturing side. So if you're a business that's in the process or that's part of your operations, that's what you do. You build and design ZEV batteries, or as the next slide we'll talk about, you build and design ZEV vehicles. This program is specifically designed to bring you savings for those types of businesses. I think California Energy Commission kicked out a $30 million award to BYD to build ZEV batteries for school buses as well as ZEV school buses. I think they're doing that in San Bernardino. But anyway, that award went out in February under this program. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, there's a corollary program that speaks to the vehicle manufacturing side, and that's the ZEV Transportation Manufacturing Grant Program. I will say both this program and the previous program that focused on the battery side, those applications tend to come together end of Q4, maybe beginning of Q1. So I think you can look to November, December of this year's potential timelines when you can drop an application and pursue this program. If it doesn't hold to those dates, and it may slip until January, but to let you know, that's when those types of opportunities will typically become available. For all of these programs, when they hit the street, a lot of what state departments and agencies do is they put on a workshop that gives businesses like the folks tuning in to this webinar today the opportunity for Q&A with staff to understand the best approaches to securing an award under these programs. Next slide, please. This gets into a little bit of the alternative fuel or the alternative vehicle side. Look, there's trucks, there's cars, there's boats, there's airplanes, but there's a lot of non-traditional vehicles out there that also need to be converted away from fossil fuels and towards alternative fueling sources. So the Carl Miller Air Quality Standards Attainment Program is really designed for that exact purpose. We've seen a lot for this region. We've seen a lot of activity and drive and support for linking this program with entities down at the ports, for example, that have a lot of non-traditional vehicles that they're utilizing down that way. Next slide, please. I think this is the last one I'm going to mention to you, and this gets back to if your business not only has needs for succeeding in California and the US, but it's also looking at international markets. Our GoBiz team has a STEP team within it as part of our international team. What they do is they help businesses both work with the state where the state's planning to go to trade shows. There's a couple that are listed on this slide, letting you know what ones that are going to be coming up in Q1, Q2 of next year, where basically you can work with the state to participate in the pavilions that they set up at these conferences in international, which you like to take in approaching different new markets, and the STEP team can work with you to help reduce your costs in that arena as you seek to approach those markets. Next slide, please. Here's kind of a quick summary of where the cap is, but you're looking at a grant of up to $10,000 to help you with those foreign trade missions. The funding does go quickly, I'll tell you that. So definitely be looking at this program as we kind of start looking to flip the calendar over to 2025, which is when more funding under the program will become available after all the new budget stuff goes into effect December, January. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, you can download our full suite of business investment services that we offer all kinds of businesses across the state, but certainly are applicable to the manufacturers that are tuning in on this call through this QR code. You can just pop through and get a look at each one of those incentive programs. As I mentioned, when I started rambling on, I work directly for GoBiz, but also do a ton of work with LAEDC, with CMTC, with SCE, with a lot of the regional providers and stakeholders that you as manufacturers can utilize to really optimize how you're approaching your business and saving money across your operations. That's really what we're here for. So please do not be shy about reaching out to me, where I can be helpful in having you dig into these programs and save you some money. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate everybody tuning in today.
Thank you, Dustin and Linda. Seta, could you turn to the next slide, please? So right now we will be having a Q&A session. I do see, Kimberly, you have your hand raised. Could you please drop that into the Q&A? Or if there are any comments, we do have a chat box as well available.
There is, I don't know if you want to switch to the next slide also while we're going through questions and answers, because there's some.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to go there. Yeah, maybe I'll bring up some of these and you guys can bring up some of these, and then let's definitely get to questions, including the one that's been in the chat about ETP for a while. So here there are CMTC and LAEDC and GoBiz and SoCal Edison and so forth. We really are, as Dustin mentioned, kind of a family of resources. We work a lot together. So please tap into, what's available to you. So CMTC has a lot of valuable webinars that we offer directly on multiple topics. And the first QR code here is a link to our whole webinar calendar. And that includes both what's upcoming as well as past webinars that are available on demand. And then so that's a valuable link. We do also have a cybersecurity training series and all of our webinars that are no cost. That training series has already started, but we still have several more webinars available and different topics related to cybersecurity. And you can see what all those are and the dates by scanning the QR code. And there is actually a webinar tomorrow that's part of that series. I know there's also an LAEDC webinar then, which I think Seta will talk about, or Raphael. And then we also are in the middle of a business transformation series that currently is largely focused on continuous improvement. And our next webinar in that series is also tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. And then if you guys want to talk about what's coming up with LAEDC.
Yeah, definitely. So tomorrow, my colleague Seta Robin, who's also on this webinar, she will be hosting a government contracting information session. She is collaborating with the city of West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. So we will have some awesome guest speakers to help you dabble into procurement. In addition, next month, we will be hosting a business expo in Pomona. We have some awesome partners as well, the County of LA, AJCCs, and it is being spearheaded by our colleague, Mavon Rondinaya, so shout out to him. But again, I see a couple of hands raised. I'd actually like you guys to actually direct your questions to the Q&A, please. So if you can just drop a question in the chat or the Q&A, Ray, I would really appreciate it.
And I see there's a question already in the Q&A that I'm happy to field, and Dustin, feel free to add to it if you'd like. So there's a question, ETP, or a statement rather, ETP funding actually comes from business/employer taxes state of California set aside. So ETP funds are being paid for with employers' money. So that is true. The money for ETP funding comes from unemployment insurance that you're paying. So it's a great idea to take advantage of it to further upskill your workforce and help drive better performance and employee retention, in the process. There are some parameters related to ETP training, and we're really poised to kind of guide you through all of that. Dustin, I don't know if you want to add anything or not, but thanks for bringing that point up. That is true.
No, I think you covered it great. Thanks, Linda.
Okay, sure thing.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Linda. Again, we do have a Q&A. If you're able to drop your questions in the Q&A, we would really appreciate it. Again, Ray Walker, you can just drop that question in there.
Dustin, I don't know if you can put the link in for the new hire employment credit. It was in the slides, but if you have it handy, maybe you can put it in the chat. Or people can find it through the whole business
Awesome.
incentive guide that was the QR code. You had it previously.
Yeah, definitely. So we just had one question come in, Emily. Where will the slides be posted? So we will be posting these slides on our website, LAEDC. We will be doing a PDF version, so all the QR codes are going to be valid. So feel free to check that out in the next day or so. Also, if you're able to drop your contact information, Linda, Dustin, in the chat, that way everybody can access that. That would be really helpful.
Sure. I also wanted to mention something regarding the partial sales and use tax exemption that Dustin spoke about. It not only does it have a 3-year look back period, so any equipment that you've purchased or leased in the past 3 years, used or new, to be able to support your manufacturing operation. If you haven't used the partial sales and use tax exemption, you've bought it in the past 36 months, you can take advantage of that to save about 3.9% on your tax, California sales and use tax. And if you have equipment purchases in the future to support your manufacturing operation, you can also apply for it proactively. There are ways to get it proactively so that your cash outlay is already reduced by that lower tax rate when you're actually buying the equipment.
Awesome. Thank you for addressing that on the partial sales tax exemption, Linda. If there is no questions, we can end now. I did drop in the chat my contact information. Dustin dropped his contact information as well. Linda did as well. So feel free to reach out to any of us. Our emails are there. Our inboxes are available for you. Okay, so we just had one question come in. Ray, does the partial sales and use tax relief apply to software? So I'm going to actually let Linda and Dustin address that, specifically Dustin.
Yes, it can be applied to software.
Awesome. Yes. So it's software is applicable, Ray.
Yep.
Again, if there are no more questions, if Seta, you could jump to the next slide, please. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Linda for being a guest speaker. Dustin as well. I really appreciate our partnership. Thank you to everybody for attending this webinar. Again, these slides will be posted on our website. A recording of the webinar will also be posted. This was recorded. So if you want to rewatch it, in case you overlook some information, that's going to be accessible to you. I'll let you guys all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Oh, there was a question added by Melissa Feinstone in the chat.
Okay, quick question. Any tax rebates to a vehicle bought for business use? Dustin, kind of just direct that question to you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so as you'll see there in the ZEV slides, the HVIP program is really designed to provide rebates in that arena. Feel free to hit me up if you want to chat through it any further, but that's really the design of that program, is to help extend rebates for that type of equipment, those types of vehicles.
Thank you, Dustin. Again, if you have more questions, just feel free to email us. We'll get back to you. Again, thank you again for everybody attending. We're going to end this webinar now. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.